I want to start with a nigun that I learned in this house. But I learned it wrong, or we all learned it wrong. I don't know. Because I heard it yesterday. I heard Reb Shlomo sing it yesterday. And I thought it was a two-part nigun, but it's a three-part nigun. So after the first part, so just listen, just to make sure, we're on the same page. But I wanted to say, Mamash, Karata Tov to this house. for all, well, I can't say for everything, just say for myself, because it's much bigger than me. But
you need to speak up a little, please.
There are people
yeah.
who need to hear you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, Karata Tov to this house is very... just on the most simple level, there's all these different levels to say thank you, but just on the simple level of just opening a space that people could meet, Reb Shlomo, whatever level it is, if it's a nigun, if it's a teaching, if it's a story, or most importantly, if it's people who were mekabel from him and passing it on, because the Gemara says is people are so stupid. They're so stupid. They get up when the Sefer Torah comes out, but they don't get up when the Talmidei Chachamim, when the people who actually have the Torah inside of them come in. So that's probably the deepest thing about this place, is that people have an opportunity to meet people who have Reb Shlomo inside of them. So let's sing this nigun and hopefully we'll get it right. L'tzion v'rachamim v'shan avodecha v'yira v'shan avodecha v'yira Shani Galvaniyan Kimeyanam Shani Galvaniyan Tefezena Yud Shura Letzion Ve'achamim L'tzion v'rachamim v'shan avodecha v'yira v'shan avodecha Carlebach Shani Did you know that? Did you know this, the three parts? So I learned it wrong. Baruch Hashem. It's good to do tshuva. It's good to do tshuva. Baruch Hashem. You know, it's not a little thing. You know, you hear a nigun and you hear one. So the truth is, I always have two feelings about that. Sometimes it's like, oh, there's chidushim. You know, everybody knows being creative means you take what you have and then you take it to another level. And then there's, you know, then there's ruining things. So I never know what to feel, but there's certain nigun. You see, I'm not as, how do I say this? I'm not as firm about it as other people are with Shlomo's nigunim, but there are certain nigunim that you just know. The way that people sing it wrong, it's totally off. It's not just, okay, you know, that's nice, it's cute. It's really misses the whole point, misses the whole Torah of that nigun. So, I'm going to try. I'm doing my best. Maybe I'm not. I should do better. So, you know, yahrzeit is a few things all at once, right? Anybody's really connected to someone, a teacher, a holy person, and that person, you know, leaves the world. So I was thinking about this. There's three different things that really should be going on in that. Right. So one thing is, you know, we feel the pain. You know, you feel, you know, on a certain level, if you're really connected to someone and, you know, they leave the world, at least in their, you know, in their body. So if you can't cry, so you're not really connected. You know, it's not. And that's true. And that's true. It's part of what's going on. You know, and you know, last night, and every year for the last 17 years, 18 years, I've been going to Shlomo's kever in the yahrzeit about midnight, about chatzot, and I don't think I've been there once without crying. It's not emet in a certain sense, right? But everybody knows there's another side, right? Because when anybody leaves the world, and especially when holy people leave the world, so they're, in a certain sense, their presence is bigger. His presence is bigger, their connection is bigger. You know, the Gemara says, Gdolim tzadikim b'mitatan masher b'chayim. Tzadikim are much greater after they leave the world than when they were in the world. Right? And so everybody knows that the yahrzeit is not a sad time, right? In fact, the Gemara says about Hartman that he was so excited that the lot came out on Adar, because that's when Moshe Rabbeinu left the world, right? He didn't know That's also when Moshe Rabbeinu was born. So the Hasidic kind of way of looking at that is, that's how I heard this, is that Haman knew that Moshe Rabbeinu left the world, but he didn't know he had a yahrzeit. So, because we know that there's a tremendous light of a neshama that comes into the world every year on the day that they left the world, right? So there's another thing that's going on is to be connected to that, to celebrate it, but to receive it, right? To receive it. Like, what's the light? I was thinking about this, like we're still counting the years, But I was like, Rabbi Nachman's yahrzeit, I don't say, well, this is the 202nd year since he was, I said, we just don't do that anymore. It's like, I don't know if they ever did it, So at some point we're going to stop counting years, it's 22 years, 23, it's like, it's the yahrzeit. It doesn't matter really how many years. What matters is what's coming in, what's coming down, what's coming up, And the third thing that I was thinking about, what's a yahrzeit, is every year, anybody who's connected to a teacher, to a holy person, this is a time to be mitchazek, to get strength, to take whatever it is we received and do something with it. Right? It's not a passive thing, like, oh, it's this beautiful day. I mean, it is a beautiful day and a beautiful night, but if it's real, then something should wake up inside and say, now it's time to go, right? Now it's time to do something. Now it's like I always say, as Rabbi Nachman said to his Hasidim, he said, if I had a Rebbe like you, he said, I would walk on foot all the way just to go see him. So one of the Hasidim said, what would you do on the way home? He said, I would run. Right? In other words, if it's a real Rebbe, you don't come out of the Rebbe and say, now I have to go home, back to, Motzei Shabbat, right? Motzei Shabbat, so we could come out of Motzei Shabbat and be, it's so sad, Shabbat is over. But instead, we make Havdalah. And if you really make Havdalah, there's a tremendous light on Motzei Shabbat. It's a tremendous light. It's an or choser. It's like, okay, this light shined in, and now let's take it. Let's go. Let's go. So that's just the three things, I was thinking. Because Rabbi Nachman has a teaching. Rabbi Nachman says, anybody who's present, that's what he says, at the time that a tzaddik leaves the world, any of their students who are present, so they can receive 2 times the ruach of that tzaddik, 2 times what their tzaddik had in his life. So I heard this on Rabbi Nachman's yahrzeit, from Rav Fruman Zichrono Livracha. He said, the yahrzeit, that's the time. That's the time of the Ptira, right? So every year, anybody who's present on the yahrzeit is present at the time that this neshama left the world, right? And if you're connected to that neshama, you can get something on that day that is way beyond what you even got when they were alive, right? Why? So Rabbi Nachman explains. It's a whole long teaching. I'm not going to go in the whole long teaching. I just want to take something from it. He says, because every tzaddik has 2 ruachs, 2 spirits. They have a spirit down here, and they have a spirit above. And the spirit above is way bigger than what they can do in their life. It's like, we have this tremendous potential of neshama, but when you're here in this world, you only have so many years, you only have so much, and you only have this much of a body, so you can only do so much, right? But your ruach, you have a part of your ruach that's way bigger than that. And it can't come down into the world. But on the day that neshama leaves the world, so all of a sudden, there's a connection that's made between the spirit that's here in this world and that spirit that's above that can't come down into the world. And if you happen to be present, so you can receive that meeting of those two ruchot. And I want to share with you, Rav, again, from Rav Fruman, I have to tell you, I'm going to tell you just grind, in parentheses, I'll try not to lose the train of thought. I have a tendency to go off, but when I met Reb Shlomo, the first night when I met Reb Shlomo, I say this every year, I think maybe, there's this phrase, it's called, they pull the rug out of under your feet. So I felt like they pulled the floor out of under the feet and the walls and the ceiling and whatever. Just was like, whoa, And the main thing I would say was the whoa was, oh, Hashem. This God isn't this character in Tanakh. God is present, and to be in the presence of someone that's what he's walking around being in the presence of, was really, all of a sudden, wow, everything you thought what life was about, it's not about that. It's about something else legamre, right? And that was every time I met him after that. And slowly I got language for it because I didn't have language for it then. I just had an experience. And slowly I learned a little bit about how you start to access that, not just by being in the presence of someone, but how you can start to do something about it yourself. And then Shlomo left the world. All of a sudden, I was telling this the other night, it's this funny experience I had. Shlomo left on Thursday night, which was Friday morning here in Eretz Yisrael. And Shabbat, I happened to be in Kiryat Moshe. I was davening at Merkaz Harav, which is I don't know if anybody knows, this big hall. And, it's like a huge yeshiva, lots of people, and I happened to daven there. And I walked by, and on the wall, there's this little petek. This little petek said, Baruch Dan, I met Reb Shlomo Carlebach. So I was like, it got to be some teacher here in the yeshiva whose name it, because they couldn't just put down a little petek, like, what is it, So I didn't think anything of it. And then Motzei Shabbat I found out. And then Monday was the Levaya, but I was in the army and I couldn't get out to go to Levaya. So I only could get out Thursday. So Thursday I went to the kever, right? And I didn't know anything about, all I know about kevers is you go to a grave and a grave has a matzeva, right? That's all I know, But anybody who knows anything about it, which I didn't know then, is that it takes some time till you put the matzeva up. So you know what's there on the kever before the matzeva's up? There's a mound of dirt and a little marker and a little petek. Yeah. So I go to the kever and there's this little petek, and I was like, "What's going on here? It's Reb Shlomo. Like, what? It's everywhere. There's everybody just this little, like, what's going on? I didn't." And I thought it's just so deep, because really, and I don't know anything about, what they decided about the matzeva, but whatever you're going to say about Shlomo, you can't, it's really just a little petek, it doesn't matter how big it is, it's just a little petek, because compared to what you're going to say, it's just, so it was a deep thing for me. It's like, oh, right, well, what are you going to say? What you can say is Reb Shlomo, that's what you can say. Okay, so then a few years later, I met Rav Menachem Furman, Zichrono Livracha, and that night I had the same experience. It was really unbelievable. I was like, wow, I didn't know that I was going to meet this again. So for me, they're very connected, these two neshamas, although they barely met, maybe never met. Anyway, so I'm sharing with you a little bit what Rav Fruman said about this Torah on the Likutei Moharan. He said, what does it mean there's the spirit above that can't come into the world? He said, basically, every big neshama has a dream. Something they're dreaming about the world. And their dream is always bigger than what's going to come into the world. You can't, the world can't hold the dream of a tzaddik. It can't. And so it's hovering there above the world, this dream, this spirit of like what could be, But the Talmidim, if they happen to be really connected and in touch with this teacher, and they are able to be present in that moment when that opens up, so they can take that dream in and actually do something with it. That's what's, and it's all really the spirit of the teacher, but it's actualizing things that when he was alive, he couldn't do. And it's amazing teaching that Rabbi Nachman's teaching, because, obviously, Rabbi Nachman's also aware of his own mortality, right? He died very young. What Rabbi Nachman's saying is, it's not, the deepest part of what a teacher is and has to give the world doesn't completely come into the world until the Talmidim take it to that next step. It's not, it's just, a human being. It just has so much they can do in their life. But if they're real and they're a real teacher, so that goes on. It goes on. It's. So again, here we are at the time that this neshama left the world. And anybody who's here in this room, at least, is a little bit of Talmud. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? A little bit trying to receive something. And so it's an amazing thing. Here we are. There's this potential coming into the world that maybe can take a dream beyond where it was when it was just a dream. It's a pele thing, that Rabbi Nachman's saying. So, so then the question starts to be, okay, so what is this Ruach de Le'ela, this dream, this something beyond? When you hear what he's saying also is that sometimes we like, we like stories that begin and end and they're really like, it's all, works out. But the real stories, they don't work like that. They don't really begin because everything's really yonek, how do you say yonek? Nourished from whatever was coming before, Every Rebbe has a Rebbe. So who's Reb Shlomo's Rebbe? So I'll tell you what I heard, and I heard it a few times. Reb Shlomo said, everybody needs two Rebbes, right? You need your Rebbe and you need Rabbi Nachman. He said that, right? He said it, right? So several times people asked him, so who's your Rebbe? And at least twice I know he said, I'm 2 times Rabbi Nachman. So that's what he said. I don't know.
2 times Rabbi Nachman.
I don't know. So, but I'm saying, every Rebbe has a Rebbe, and it goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. It goes back, to the Rebbe. The Gemara says, Adam and Chava, so Hashem was the Rebbe. And Adam and Chava were the Talmidim, right? And so was the snake, whatever. It's a whole story there. But, Divrei Rav, right? The Rav is Hashem, really, if you go back. So no story starts, really. It's all... And the real stories don't end either. They're just... Every piece, takes it on, right? So So Shlomo's story didn't end, right? It's a new stage, right? It's a new. I know it didn't end. Not only do I know it because there's this idea that tzaddikim are great, but I mean, take a look. Every year that I go, I told you I'm going every 17, 18 years to the kever. Every year I go, there's more people there in the middle of the night. So unbelievable. Last night it was like 50, 60 people there, and it was like, people coming and going, and just, it's bizarre. Like when I first went there, I was alone in the whole cemetery. I was just sitting there by myself, and then like every year a little bit. So I'm not even talking about what happens during the day. I've actually never been during the day. I know it's much bigger. I'm just saying, so the story goes, so our avodah today, and I really think this last night, we had this beautiful gathering not so far from here, and Rav Eliyasu Sukkot came, and he said, very simple Torah, right? Very simple Torah I heard from Reb Shlomo the first year he met him. He said, what does it mean, lech lecha? It means you keep going. Just keep going, don't stop. Don't stop. Okay, sometimes maybe you're going backwards, but you just keep going, whatever it is, keep going. And it's very, very strong last night, which connected to what I'm feeling a lot, and what I always feel on the yahrzeit is it's not about celebrating for the sake of wow, it's just let's have something beautiful. It's deeper than that. It's let's take it, receive it, embrace it, but let's take it somewhere. Let's go. Let's go. Shlomo used to say, let's go. I think probably one of his most common phrases, right? Let's go. Right? So, lech lecha, right? And so, of course, I'm not going to answer the question, okay, so what's the Ruach de La'ela, right? Because first of all, everybody sort of receives it in a way, but the question, what is it that I receive today? What do I learn? What do I take in today that I can actualize or I can work towards that's going to make the world, whether it's Reb Shlomo's world, whether it's mamash, the world, more of whatever truth and kedusha and beautiful beauty, that he was about, right? What needs to be deeper? The other thing, we saw these 3 videos last night. So Shlomo it's great. You should see this. I don't know how do you get it, but there's an interview that he did with Mickey Rosen in Yakar. So, or Mickey Rosen. So he asked him, Shlomo, so you teach and you sing and you learn, okay, but what's your shorish neshama? Which one of those is like, oh? So Reb Shlomo started, by saying, he tells this story about the Reb Chaim Brisk. And I love it when Shlomo used to tell stories about Reb Chaim Brisk or from Lakewood or whatever, because, that's a part of Shlomo. You got people get a lot of the Rebbe stories, but he was like so like the learning, right? Just to like take all of us back to that nakuda of like the omek of learning Torah, like mamash, just lishma, which he did for 25 years or so, whatever. Just, without any cheshbon of, okay, now we're going to take it out to just Torah, right? And from the deepest teachers of Torah, right? So anyway, so he said Rav Chaim Brisk and his cousin, Rav Sender, I think his name is, they were 7 or 8 years old. So Brisker's father came and he asked him, okay, which one of you learns better? So Chaim Brisk says, should I brag or should I lie? So his cousin said, you're bragging and you're lying. So Reb Shlomo said, he said, whenever you talk about yourself, so, you're always going to be, you'll have to brag and you have to lie, because how can you talk about yourself? So then he said, and he got serious, and he said, my shorish neshama is depth. It's like, I can't stand shallow people, can't stand, like they're really, they're beautiful, I forgive them, but I can't stand it. He said, everything that I do, right, if it's a nigun, if it's a teaching, my kavana is that the world should be deeper, right? That it should be deep and it should be deeper, right? I even saw this Torah from Shlomo about Vayera in the book. It's in Shlomo's book. What's it called? Evan Shlomo, yeah. So he says there, this amazing thing. He says, to be a tzaddik like Noach is you do your best. Do your best. Try to, really do your best. He said, but Avram Avinu is like not do your best. It's do so much more than your best, right? He said, it's not enough for us to just like try to figure out this picture of, okay, this is what I can do and I'll try to do it. It's Avram Avinu's derech is, I'm going to constantly try to go beyond. Try to go beyond. And, anybody who met Shlomo knows that. Like, the last year he was alive, he came here the last summer, and he was crazy. So I was told, like, what he did. He went around, didn't stop for a second. He was like, I guess he knew, how much time he had. But it's one of the things that I think we, and especially people who receive from Shlomo, really need to learn this. That whatever we connect to, the highest thing or the deepest thing that we can say about what we connect to is that it took me to another level. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, wow, that was the highest, But more important is, when I come out of that, Shlomo said, if I teach you and you get a lot of answers to questions you had, I didn't do a good job. He said, but if I teach you and your questions are deeper than they were before I taught, then we really learned, Then we really learned. And on the surface of it, it's very frustrating. It's like, because we want to get there, I don't want to come out and have questions. Like, I'm waiting for answers, right? And that's part of why it wasn't ever so simple to connect to Reb Shlomo, really, because you can't stop there, right? You can say, wow, that was so deep. But if a moment later you're just the same person you were yesterday, so then it's zelozeh, it's just not. And so on a certain level, you have to open yourself up to a much more infinite way of being, which is, infinite is a beautiful word, but like a lot of people, if you think about it, it's like infinite means it doesn't end. It doesn't end means I never get there. And that's not bad, that's beautiful, right? I feel so much this year, more than other years, Reb Shlomo opened something. He opened something. But he didn't finish. And not because he wasn't the greatest, because if he really opened it, it doesn't finish, right? It's not. And so we always, all of us, have to ask the question, what is the deeper, the more, the beyond that this teaching, that this nigun, that this story takes me. And I wanted to share with you this amazing thing. The first night that I met with Shlomo, and I was so zoche last year, 20 years I was looking for a recording of that night.
Mm-hmm.
And
You found it? Wow.
I didn't find it. Someone else found it for me. But holy person was here in the room. But what he was talking about that night, it was an amazing thing. It's just now I'm thinking about it. He was talking about that night was about the I'm going to use a term, he didn't use this term, but I think this is what he meant. It was about the reshimu that our teachers leave us. It's about the marks that the people who left the world, what they left, right? He was talking that night, it was the Parsha of Paraduma, and he was talking about what is it, this Paraduma that you have to, burn it down to the ashes, right? And somehow those ashes, that's mitaher, right? From tumat met, from impurity of death. He said because those ashes are, what they really are this marking. It's that nekuda that's left. And if you know how to internalize that nekuda that's left, it brings life. It doesn't bring death. So all of our teachers, all of our avot and imahot and all the rebbes and, the nekuda, the books. He said these books are the rishimu. They're not just books. It's not just a piece of paper with printing on it. It's the marking of the neshama of the teacher that he left for us, or she left for us, whoever it is, And that's what he was talking about all night. Right? He had stories, and it was all around that nekuda. And I'm thinking now, wow, amazing. That first night I met him, on a certain level, he was already talking about, okay, what are you going to take? What are you going to take? Because more important than whatever experience you had is the reshimu of that experience. Is what is it that I'm carrying with me after? Right?
The imprint.
Yeah. Imprint, yeah, it's a good word. He had a different word. He said scratches. It's a deep thing, but it had to do with how he was teaching, But the mark, the mark. But it's the same thing, right? Imprint's a beautiful word. So, it's an amazing thing because Rabbi Nachman did the same thing. When he knew he was leaving the world, he started teaching about, okay, what are you going to do now? And they didn't know, because nobody really, none of the Talmidim wanted to believe that he was going to leave the world, so they didn't really pay attention to the depth of what he was saying. But he kept, all of these, if you see his teachings, the last 3 years of his life, he's teaching about, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to take this, right? And I guess Reb Shlomo had that also, but we didn't, I just met him that night, so because I couldn't, of course. Now, maybe that's the hashgacha, that like 20 years later, when I can say, okay, now I have a little bit of a taste of what it means to be connected, okay, now I can hear that again. Oh, okay, that's what you're teaching me, Every single story, nigun, teaching, smile, tear, is not just something that I'm going to be nostalgic about. It's not, oh, that was so beautiful. If I'm really connected to it, every time I remember it, it's going to take me somewhere. It's going to take me somewhere. Rabbi Nachman said, we have this amazing thing. Last night at the kever, I met this guy that I met him a couple of times, and he got married this year. And he says to me, he's like, what? He said, what do I do? He says, how do I stay connected? Especially when you're married. And I was like, so sad to hear this, but especially when you're married and there's no time, and it's like, how do you stay connected? So the only thing I had to say to him was, because, what are you going to say? I gave him a hug. I said, but Rabbi Nachman says, whenever you have a time that you're in darkness and you're not connected and you feel far, so remember some point when you were connected. And you have to draw from that memory the light that was there. But you're not drawing that light because you wish you were back then. You're drawing the light because it reminds you. It reminds you that there's a connection. You know, I always think this Motzei Shabbat. We say, Layehudim haita ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. Right? The Jews had such simcha and light. You say, Ken tiyeh lanu. So usually, I think, I don't know how you read that. Usually people say, Ken tiyeh lanu means please, let's have it again, right? But I always heard it differently. You know, we had it, so we know we're going to have it. Ken tiyeh lanu, for sure. It's not a tefillah, it's for sure, you know. Because if I can remember the aura, the simcha, the sason vikar, then I know that that's still there somewhere. It's ken tiyeh lanu, ken tiyeh lanu. And so, really, the most important thing on the yahrzeit is, what are we taking forward? Where are we going? And I'm just going to share with you two things that I'm going to try and take, because I don't, you know, I really, it's chas v'shalom that I should say, okay, this is what we need to take from, because, you know, everybody's different. And here's one of the things that I think all of us should take from Reb Shlomo is he knew that everyone's different. And not only did he know that, he didn't see that as like, okay, ma lasot, like everybody's different, so we have to. It's mamash, oh Hashem, that everybody's different. It's the beauty and the you know what Rabbi Nachman's called klaliyut hagvanim. It's like all the colors, right? And if you know about all the colors, you know. Now I'm learning from you. This is just to cut the last part of what you were saying, right? So you know that every place you go, every person you go, okay, you talk like this and you say this, and it's not that you're just playing to. It's like you know, it's different. It's different. You say to this person something, and that's bidiyuk. Nachon, you say the same thing. Rabbi Nachman said it. So what's so hard to teach a group of people? It's so hard to teach a group of people. Why? Because who knows? This person needs to hear this, but maybe that other person is so horrible for them to hear that same, you know? How do you say something that everybody can take whatever they need from, you know? And it takes a lot of davening, and it takes a real, you know, it's not so simple. I mean, you have to really, really just beg Hashem. You know, you shouldn't say something that is not right for someone, right? So, chas v'shalom, to say, this is what Reb Shlomo's dream is that you need to take with you, you know. No, I'm not going to say. I can share, you know, a little bit of what I'm getting this year. So two things. And they're both connected to Vayera, and it's amazing, it's unbelievable. Like every time I think about the fact that Reb Shlomo left the world in this parsha, it's like, whoa. Really. Because it's not a simple parsha. If you read this parsha, it's really beautiful, but it's not simple. You know, the Midrash says, you know, where do you start teaching? Where are you supposed to start teaching kids Torah, right? Where do they start, right? What? So the Midrash says Vayikra, right? Not Breshit. Because Breshit is an adult book. What do I mean by that? It's not so simple. Any story in Breshit is not so simple. Like, how do you tell your kids about Lot and his daughters? How do you tell, you know, what are you going to tell, you know? So Avraham Avinu wanted to save this awful city, you know, like what's going on, right? Because you have to be deep in this parsha. You have to be deep. There's no other way to read Vayera. And then one of the things that's in Vayera, every single story through, is that it's really about touching the places where you don't really know. You don't really know. You know, half the parsha is about Lot. You know what the word Lot means? Unclear. Loteh ba'arafel. It's like Who knows? Who knows? And that's the Nakuda Mashiach comes from. That's the Nakuda that Avram Avinu's davening about, right? And that's where you really meet who your neshama really is. When you know about life, when you know exactly what you need to do, and you know where, you know that, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, and the whole avoda is just to make sure you do the right thing and not like somehow fall, you say that's nice. But what do you do when you don't know? How are you going to meet Hashem and your own neshama and the world when you're not 100% sure? And the willingness to go and meet those places and not run away, and to say, okay, I'm going to daven here. This is Parsha of davening. It's the first time the word's used in the Torah, right? It's davening, right? B'Palel. I'm going to daven, and I'm going to yearn, and I'm going to beg Hashem, please let it not be that in this place of confusion there's nothing. There's got to be something, somebody, some nekuda to take from here. And Reb Shlomo was, I don't know. I wasn't with him his whole life. I met him maybe 18 times in my life. But I feel it very strong that that's a deep teaching, and especially now the world has become so mishuga. It's a crazy world. Outside, it's a crazy world. Inside, and there's a lot of, I don't know. And the way to go is I'm going to daven, and I'm going to yearn, and I'm going to really search, how do I find that nekuda, that this is what I'm supposed to take out of here? So that's one thing that and I know that we might do that sometimes as individuals, but we still need to do more of that as a people. Emunah is in a place where I don't know. Emunah is, I don't know, and I'm going to trust you, Hashem, right? Avraham Avinu went to the Akedah, and if you really read the psukim, it's clear he didn't know. He knew Hashem said something, right? And Rashi says, even what he thought Hashem said, that's not what Hashem said, right? Hashem didn't want him to sheft his son, chas v'shalom. But Avraham Avinu didn't know. He didn't know. He didn't know where to go. It's over there somewhere, right? And he went. And he was willing. And that maaseh is what Am Yisrael takes us beyond every single day, every year. We remind Hashem of it all the time. You remember the Akedah? Because the willingness to go there means I'm so, and this is the second point I wanted to say, that I want to say about me taking. I read this short Torah, and afterwards I'm gonna ask Shlomo what's the source, because in Evan Shlomo I read this one little paragraph. Shlomo says, what does it mean, brit? What's a covenant? What's a brit? He said, when a person gets married, life doesn't stop being hard. There's all kinds of stuff comes up. Anybody who's married knows that, right? Anybody who's not married should know that also. We're not, I'm not saying that to discourage. I'm saying, life is life. It's hard. But what's the difference? The difference is if you have a brit, then all those struggles, they're on the outside. Because on the inside, you're connected. And he said that about being married. He said about Hashem. If you have a brit with Hashem, so you know there's going to be all kinds of stuff. And it's not so simple and it's confusing. But if you have a brit, then you can go anywhere. Because on the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, I'm connected. And the willingness to go to all those places that are not clear starts with having a brit. Okay, Hashem, I don't know what you want. But I know, and I've committed myself, that we're connected. So if I don't know, and I'm confused, and sometimes it seems like the way things are going are the opposite of what you might want, or what you think, or what, but I know I have a brit. And those two pieces that I feel very much, the emunah and the kesher has to get so much deeper, because we often, in order to have emunah, we need to tell the story in a certain way. But Hashem's story is much deeper than the way we tell it. And instead of saying, this is the story, say, I don't know what the story is. I don't understand. Why is it that we got this tremendous chut almost 70 years ago? And here we are, and Am Yisrael is coming back to Eretz Yisrael, and it's like, it's so geula, and then it's so not. And why is there so much? I don't know. Why does it have to be this way? Why couldn't we just go straight to Beit HaMikdash, Okay, it takes 10 years to build, but but who knows why? Why does it have to be so long? And confusing. And Am Yisrael's confused. And the first step is, let's remember and remind ourselves and remind Am Yisrael we have a brit. And that brit means not to be afraid. And it also means it's okay to go to those places we don't know. It's okay. And not only is it okay, it's deeper than okay. Mashiach's going to come from that. Because the one thing Hashem is asking, Hashem's not asking us to know. Hashem's not even asking us to be right all the time. If there's one teaching that keeps coming back in Reb Shlomo, it's like, you can't live without mistakes. Can't live without mistakes. Baruch Hashem, somebody can say that, because it's not the teaching you always get into, but really there's Torah there. There's Torah there. Tov, I shouldn't go on anymore. What time is this? The right time? I don't know. I don't want to keep Shlomo waiting. What? Well, I'm going to take a few more minutes. I just, I think a lot about, why was Shlomo late all the time? He gave all these, cute things he said about it, but why really was Shlomo late all the time? And, part of it is being beyond time, but a part of it is, if you're really connected to something, you have to stay a few more minutes. You can't just okay, time's up, let's go. Right? It doesn't work like that, right? You have to take a few more minutes. You have to, if you love something, you have to take a few more minutes all the time. So if you think about it, if you all day long, you take a few more minutes, by the time it's midday, it's not a few more minutes, right? And I really think there's something, something there. It's like you can't, it's not just, malasot, I don't have a watch. It's, am I going to relate to everything as, okay, it's exactly what it is, or no, there's a little bit more here. There's a little bit more here. Avraham Avinu is like, okay, maybe you'll save the Sodom if there's 50 people. Okay, maybe if there's 45. Okay, maybe if there's 40. By the third time you think, okay, get the point, no? Hashem gets the point, no? No, but what if there's 20, And I think part of it is Avraham Avinu didn't want to stop the tefillah. He didn't want to stop it. He's like, I know. At some point I'm going to have to walk away and I'm going to have to just accept what's coming. But I don't want to stop. So he went a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until he mamashi couldn't go anymore. But that's a really important, that's the first place that we learn about tefillah. So just a little bit more, right? Okay, so a little bit more. I want to sing with you one more nigun. And I learned it yesterday. I'm sure most of you know it, but I didn't know it until yesterday. When I heard Shlomo sing it, it's an amazing thing. He sang it like one round, and I'm just going to tell you before we sing it. And then he stopped and he said, I want to tell like, what's this nigun about? Right? It's a nigun about. The nigun is the words that we say in Tefillah v'Yerushalayim Yircha v'Rachamim Tashuv. And he said, I'm saying, Hashem, rebuild it already. And if you'll hear it in the nigun, like he was saying in the nigun, it's not just a nice nigun. No, you have to really sing it. So hopefully, maybe we'll really sing it. And if you don't know it, so just pick it up, very quick. ירושלים עירך רחמים תשוב תשכון בתוך אשר דיברת ירושלים עירך רחמים תשוב תשכון בתוך אשר דיברת ובני אתה גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה ובני אתה גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה ירושלים עירך רחמים תשוב תשכון בתוך אשר דיברת ירושלים עירך רחמים תשוב תשכון בתוך אשר דיברת ובני אתה גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה ובני אתה גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין וירושלים עירך רחמים תשוב תשכון בתוך אשר דיברת גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה בני גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה גם בימינו וגם בימינו בניין הבנה בני אתה גם בימינו בניין הבנה. So I just want to tell you, I'm just here as a warm-up, is the truth. It's whatever I had to. They had an hour, I had to fill the space. But the real teaching, B'ezrat Hashem, my brother, my teacher, Shlomo Katz is here. So, we just started. We didn't really even quite start yet. B'ezrat Hashem. Todah.
Yeah, beautiful.
What?
So much, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
So strong. Yeah, let's see.
Just some indicates.
Oh, okay.
All peppers are over there. If anyone wants them, they're 50 shekels. They can give them to me and I'll give you.
Again?
What?
Oh, I'm sorry.